Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Laurie Smith on Blog Talk Radio. It is Saturday morning here, 10 o'clock in the morning, Calgary, Alberta. This is December the 4th. I'm happy to be here. This is Worldwide Epidemic of Child Abuse and Human Rights Abuses, and we're on for half an hour. It's a 30-minute live internet streaming radio broadcast from blogtalkradio.com, and the chat room's open, and if anybody would like to sit in there, that's great. Thanks, everybody who's tuning into my shows. I really appreciate it. I know a lot of people listen to the archives, and I do so many shows throughout the week. I do a total of 14 shows, and I'd also do the Dreamcatchers Talk Radio, so I know it's impossible to listen to all the shows, but I do appreciate everybody who's tuning in. I have almost 16,000 shows listened to, and it's just I had no idea a year ago, that I would still be doing Blog Talk Radio shows at this time, a year later. So thanks, everybody, for being here. I really appreciate it. And we'll get right into the topic here. I'm not a counselor or therapist, and I don't hold any certificates in those areas. I'm just a private citizen paying to do my own Blog Talk shows. The reason I pay to do my Blog Talk shows is because I wanted to be able to pick the primetime spots. So I do pay to do my shows. And, it's this whole issue of human rights abuses, which includes child abuse, violence against women, violence against men. It sits on my heart, and it sits so heavy, and it's probably because that's the way I grew up. And so, even if people have asked me, do you think you would have gotten involved even if you had not grown up the way that you did in the type of violence and the type of abuse, that we all suffered in my home? Would you still have gotten involved? And I happen to think that the answer is yes, because I'm just that kind of a person. I just care about people, right? And I care about this world, and I care about life, right? And so that's probably why I'm still here and why I'm doing what I'm doing. It's just the fact that I know what these people are going through, a lot of them, and know the horrors behind abuse and behind abuses, of all kinds, right? I've witnessed just about everything, and it's absolutely horrible what people do to each other, and it's worldwide. So that's why on Saturdays I just wanted to include a worldwide look at child abuse and human rights abuses, just like do one show about that, because mainly I focus on the national issues of child abuse and especially domestic violence and child abuse, but I am always looking at the whole worldwide situation, and that's because I'm very much interested in international community development and what's going on around the world. And it's horrible. We have rights here in North America, thank God, in the United States and Canada. Women have rights, children have rights, men have rights. Well, we do a better job of upholding those rights, even though the system still, doesn't really quite work. At least, we have some protection, and a lot more than a lot of other countries. And that's why on Saturdays I like to do one show and talk about some of these other countries and some of the issues going on. So you have to listen at your own discretion to all of my shows. I do say that on every show because it's very important, because the topics of abuse are very sensitive, and a lot of people, if you're uncomfortable with it, you have to know what's good for you to listen to, and so you have to listen at your own discretion. And young people under the age of 18, I just believe that children and young people under the age of 18 should be protected at all times, and I ask that you have permission to listen to my shows, because there's adult content on here, and anytime there's a chat room present, children should know that they need to protect themselves, and that there are ways you can protect yourself, and parents can protect their children, right? Just get the information, spend a few minutes looking around at how to protect your family, how to protect your children, and encourage your children, if you're listening to this and you're a parent, encourage your children and your teens to protect themselves, right? There's a lot of sick people out there, and I happen to have run into a whole lot of them in my lifetime. And, you want to be very, very careful what you're doing, and you want to be very careful about explaining to your children that, they do need to be very careful, and that they should come to you and tell you as a parent anything that's bothering them, anybody who's tried to get information out of them. It's very important that you protect your children, right, because the issues at hand, right, there's tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of child sexual predators and pedophiles online at any given time, according to the FBI's website. And, their FBI and ICAC are trying to shut this down, these child sexual predators and pedophiles and whatnot. But for every one that they bust, they said there's about 600 more coming right behind them. So they have a real hard time catching these people who try to get a hold of children and try to assault them sexually, right? So it's very, very important that or exploit them in some way, right? So it's important for parents to know that this is a serious issue, and it's happening, and you don't want your child to become a victim of a child sexual predator or a pedophile. And even within your own home, abuse, 90 to 95% of abuse is perpetrated within the home, and it's somebody that the child knows. So, people think, oh, it would never happen in my home, or it would never happen in my family or in my neighborhood, right? And that's just false. It happens everywhere, and you do have to be very careful if you want to protect your children, which you should, because you owe them that much. So we'll get right on into this subject here. Today I want to look at this one article. It came from IRIN, IRIN News, Humanitarian News and Analysis. It's a service of the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, and these emails pop into my inbox all the time. I have it set up that way so I don't have to go searching for too much info. It just comes popping into my inbox, and I have tons and tons of info. It's absolutely crazy what's going on around the world, but I wanted to look at this one particular article this morning. Afghanistan, women remain prisoners, from IRIN, Humanitarian News and Analysis. And this was written and posted December 2nd, so it's relative. It's just very current, and it's from Kabul in Afghanistan. Women remain prisoners, and I'm just going to read right from this article here. It says Zarguna has completed her 3-month sentence at a prison in Kandahar province, southern Afghanistan, but she is not allowed home because no male relative has shown up to guarantee that she will not run away from home again. Quote unquote, all my family has abandoned me. I am dead for them, but they, prison authorities, say they will only release me to a man from my family. The woman told IRIN in a phone interview facilitated by an official who preferred anonymity, like to remain anonymous. Anonymity? I can't even pronounce that. Forced to marry an old and mentally unstable man when she was 15, Zarguna suffered sexual violence and regular beatings until she decided to run away from home. Early marriage is commonplace in a country in which, according to aid agencies, 43% of girls marry before they are 18. So she says, quote unquote, I wanted to die but not stay with that brutal man. She said, adding that her husband and in-laws were beating her because she could not get pregnant. Women's rights activists and government officials confirmed that in many cases, female prisoners could not be released due to the absence of a male relative because they can't be unescorted. If you check out the information on Afghanistan, which I study quite thoroughly, because that is one of the worst places on the planet to live, and it has one of the lowest rates of, human lifespan is quite low there. They don't live very long, and there's hardly any real old people. The people there that are, in their 50s are considered to be ancient, and they look like they're about 100 years old if you take a look at what's going on. It's actually one of the worst places in the world to live, Afghanistan, and if you can survive there to the age of 30, you're pretty old, right? So that's why it's, I hope that they can do something with, to help these people. It never used to be like that before the Taliban took over, after the U.S. and other people helped Afghanistan beat the Russians and kick out the Russians. Everybody pulled out and left, and that's when the Taliban took over. And before that, women had rights. They actually had seats in the cabinet. They held so many seats in the government, right? They had a voice. They were allowed to walk down the street. They did not have to wear those black shrouds over their faces, or whatever they call those, burqas or whatever. They didn't have to go out escorted by men before. They could work. They could hold down jobs. They could be school teachers. Now, because of the Taliban, they have no rights, and that's because the Taliban squashed all the women's rights. The children actually have a few more rights than the women do. The women actually have no rights. Children actually have some rights, but they're still mistreated in every way because, those people just don't care what they do to people. They're just very sick. But the thing is this is one of the worst places in the world to be a woman, right? And so that's why I'm very much interested in helping to do whatever I can, for the women and children in Afghanistan, right? Because it's so sickening what's happening over there. And so they said that this is illegal, but it happens quite often in Afghanistan, said Soraya Subrang, a women's rights commissioner at the Afghanistan Independent Human Rights Commission, the AIHRC in Kabul. What should women without mahram, M-A-H-R-A-M, close relatives such as father, brother, son, or husband do? Should they end their lives because there's no man to take care of them, she said. Golem Dastagir Meyer, head of Kandahar's main prison, said he was unaware of Zarguna's case, but added that some female prisoners even wanted to stay in the prison after their sentence was over because they have nowhere to go. Biased justice. While gender-based violence is prevalent, women have very limited freedom to escape the norms and traditions that dictate a subservient status for females, according to rights groups. And quote unquote, women are denied their most fundamental human rights and risk further violence in the course of seeking justice for crimes perpetrated against them. The Human Rights Unit of the UN Assistance Mission in Afghanistan, UNAMA, reported in 2009. Over 80% of Afghan women, particularly in rural areas, are illiterate and have very little or no awareness about their human rights, including the right to a fair trial, according to aid agencies. See, that's what they did. The Taliban went in there and they destroyed the schools. First of all, they got rid of the schools. They killed the teachers. Many of the teachers had to flee the country just to save their lives. That's what people do when they want to take over a country. They'll kill, they'll burn down the schools, destroy the books, get rid of the history, right? That's how you take over a people, right? And then what you do is systematically kill everyone who speaks out against what you're doing. And then you have control of the population, and as so many people die off and so many children are born, they have no knowledge that they were ever free. They have no knowledge that they ever did have rights. What they do is they also shut down the media, so that no one can get in and tell these people that they do have rights and that they do need to stand up for them. And what they do is they squash these people under their thumb, and that's what's been going on in Africa forever. It's what's been going on in a lot of countries, not just Africa, but we're talking a lot of continents. You know, Africa's, 54 countries in Africa. That's what's been happening around the world, you know, just about every culture going. There hasn't been one group on this planet that's never had that happen to them. The Romans did it, you know, and it's not just, you know, certain nationalities or ethnic people. It happened to the Brits. You know, the Romans took over the Brits and did the same thing. The British people, the people from the British Isles. Everybody's been doing this to everybody, right? And it's very, very sick and disturbing. It bothers me, and that's why I stand up for human rights. And I don't, you know, I'm just another voice out here standing up and speaking out against human rights abuses, because if we don't, there'll be what little human rights that we do have will be taken away, guaranteed. We have to stand up and continue to fight for these human rights, because there will always be people in the world who think that they should have the right to do horrific things to people and get away with it, right? And we have human rights. Thank God, because a whole lot of people died so that we could get these human rights. So thanks to every single person that ever went out and fought for the very basic human right to life for us, you know, and for women and for children. And, you know, thanks to everyone who's ever been in the service and who's done anything at all ever since time began to stand up for a good quality of life for people, right? We know what good life is. We know what having a good life means. We all know that it's possible, and yet there would be people that would like, including our own families, who would like to squash and snuff out our human rights. That's what parents do every time they abuse their children. You know, every time a parent hurts their child, they're taking away their human rights. And I'm not talking about, you know, discipline. I'm talking about abuse, right? Every time a parent rapes their child or burns or beats on their child until their child's, you know, injured, or, you know, verbally berates them to the point where the child just wants to kill themselves, they take away that child's rights, right? And any time a man or a woman abuses their partner and does the same type of things, rapes them and hurts them and beats them up and or kills them, they're taking away their human rights. This is what this is all about. But countries will do it too on a national level. It's not just families. I mean, governments will do it. Militia groups will do it. You know, military groups. All kinds of people are the type that would do this to somebody, and I'm speaking out against it because I think it's completely wrong, and I think we all have rights. And because probably that's why, like I was saying in the beginning of the show, that's why this affects me, because I was a victim, suffering at the hands of my parents, who decided that they were going to try to trash and destroy the family because they hated each other, and so they made a clear decision that they were going to hurt us because they were hurting. You know, and so that's just that's one particular reason why some people do these things in families. But governments will do it too, and so will, you know, militia-backed, you know, governments and stuff, like religious-backed governments, like this one in that we call them terrorists, but they're just religious, fundamental religious groups who have gone completely overboard and gone crazy, think that they should be allowed to squash people. So they chose women to be squashed, and nowhere in the Quran and nowhere in the Bible does it say that women should be treated badly. Women are supposed to be treated with respect and love according to the Quran and according to the Bible, and that you would never hurt your wife, you would never do anything to hurt your family. That's what the Bible and the Quran both say. And so it's garbage what they're preaching over there in Afghanistan, the Taliban, and what's garbage what other people do. My dad was a born-again Christian who loved to hurt his family. And, and then we feel so good about it because he was doing it for God, And, these are sick people that are sick and twisted, right? My dad is very, very sick, and he reminds me of these types of these crazy fundamental religious groups out here who think it's okay to kill people in the name of Allah, And my dad is the same exact way, except for he's killing people in the name of Jesus, right? So, it's these people that would hurt people and then, and just that they have every right to do it because it's their God-given right. And that's so incredibly wrong. And I hope it's not that I even hope. I know that God is just and that He is fair. Oh, amen. And they will pay dearly for what they've done, and that's my peace. Hallelujah. Thank you, Lord. So anyway, but that's not what we're talking about here today. But anyway, what I'm saying is that in every circumstance, there will always be the type of person who will hurt someone and feel that it's okay, and there will be the type that would never hurt anybody and just don't like to see this stuff going on. You know what I mean? And they wouldn't hurt anybody on purpose anyway. And if they did, they'd feel bad and they would apologize and they would say, look, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you. I don't want to be an abuser. Not everyone's going to agree with everything everybody's doing, and families will have their problems, but they don't have to become abusive. They don't have to hurt their children. Parents don't have to lash out at their children and hurt their children just because they don't like something the child's doing, or there's ways to get around that. Even parents, couples shouldn't have to beat on each other and hurt each other just to get their way. They should be able to talk it out. And government's the same way. Human beings, we just haven't come that far. When you think about the whole past, and then you take a look at the last 2,000 years, and then you take a look at the 2,000 before that, because there's recorded history, right? Thank God. There's a lot of recorded history, actually, 4,000 years back, right? Just about every culture has some type of recorded history from about 4,000 years ago. So that's 2000 BC. And the thing is that there's no reason why in the year 2010 that we can't figure this out and that we can't change the way that we behave, because really it's all about behaving properly, right? People who abuse, it's a choice. They don't have to. No one's telling them, oh, you have to abuse people. No, it's a choice they take on. It's a personality choice, I think. It has a lot to do with, how they feel about life and how they feel about things. And there's a lot of sick people out there who think it's perfectly okay to rape children, to beat up on their husbands and wives, to beat up on their children and kill them, and, to be able to do whatever they want. They're very sick. Very, very sick. And it's going on everywhere. But, when you take a look at Afghanistan, there are some of the worst human rights violations going on there ever. Same with Africa. I kind of focus on those two countries, Afghanistan as a country and Africa as a continent, because, it's incredibly horrible what's going on. It's so wrong. And we've, as a world population, I mean, my God, my heart breaks for these people over here in these countries. I wish there was something I could do. The only thing I can think of doing, I don't have any money to donate to them, I'm saying, and even if I did, I don't even think that's going to help. It's going to take education. So I actually support a lot of groups who actually work really hard to promote and provide education in Afghanistan as well as Africa, because education's where it's all at. If we can get the schools back open and we can get people educated to know that they do have rights and not to do this to their own people, not to hurt each other, and that, there's other ways to deal with things other than violence, and that people do have rights, then we can change this, right? But without education, it'll continue to stay the way that it is, because that's how people oppress a country. Shut down the education, right? That's why everybody wants everybody to stop talking about abuse, right? Nobody wants to hear about people talking about abuse. They just want it all shut down so they can just move on and pretend that it's not happening. And then the abusers like that, because they're like, yes, now nobody's talking about it. I continue to do whatever I want, and this is great, right? That's why this is incredibly important for people to not be silent about abuse, right? Because that's what abusers want. They want the whole thing shut down so that they can continue to do what they're doing and they won't have to pay for their crimes, right? Because abuse is a crime. It's punishable by law. It's wrong. It's wrong in every way, and it's morally wrong. And, we as human beings here on the planet, we should be able to just try for 2 seconds to put ourselves in someone's shoes who's being abused and who's being treated so horribly, whether it's a man, woman, or child. and say that's not right, because if that was you in that situation, you'd be suffering. You would be hurting, like these women that would rather stay in prison than go home because they don't have anywhere to go in Afghanistan. If they go home, they're just going to suffer more abuse. And many women, burn themselves with kerosene and different type, like gasoline and kerosene and stuff. They'd rather commit suicide than put up with the abuse that they're suffering in their homes. And this is a real problem in Afghanistan. And so, and people are treating each other so horribly in Africa. I mean, it freaks me out that they've gotten, I know that there's some really intelligent people there, and I'm thinking, wow, what a drag that they can't get more education out in their countries, within Africa, because there's some really highly intelligent people in Africa. I know there is, but there's not enough of them. The rest of them are all kind of barbarians, just running around doing whatever they want to people, cutting off body parts, raping everyone. People in Africa, I mean, some of those men in those militia groups, they rape everybody. They don't care who they are, men, women, children. They're just raping everybody, right? And it's a form of control. It's a violent act against a person it's a form of intimidation and causes fear. And it's incredibly damaging to the people that they're doing this to. And the thing is they don't care. It's all about squashing the people, right? Cutting off body parts, whatever body parts they want to cut off. And, they're just sick and twisted. And I hope they die very soon, right? Because I'm sick and tired of these people on the planet that think that they should be allowed to hurt people and to do these horrific things to them. I don't care. There's no excuse for it. There never will be any excuse for it. You cannot justify abusing another person. There is no justification for it. You know what I mean? And I don't care what kind of lame, sorry excuse that people have for their behavior. There's no excuse for it. No excuse. And it's happening right now as we speak. People are cutting off women's breasts in Africa and raping them. People are raping men. People are raping children. Afghanistan, people are beating and raping their wives and killing their wives and children, burying them out in the backyard, and then going out and getting more wives to kill them too. Mothers-in-laws, especially in Afghanistan, are very abusive and try to kill their daughter-in-laws if the daughter-in-laws are not, producing children or whatever. They'll just kill them. Mother-in-laws are quite, bad for that over in Afghanistan. So, these people, this is ridiculous. I just can't understand what's the matter with people. I don't understand why people are so sick and why they're so twisted. And that's why I'm doing these shows, is because this is so wrong. And if we don't stand up and say this is so wrong, there's something wrong with us as a society, as a people, as a human being on the planet. So if you think that that's okay, there's something wrong with you, because it's not okay to hurt somebody. It's not okay, and even if somebody does hurt somebody and it was an accident, and they apologize, well, that's at least somewhat okay, because at least they're like, look, I'm so sorry, But not when they continually hurt somebody and they feel justified in doing it. That is not okay, and it will never be okay. And I'm so glad that I have the balls to speak up and to stand up and say this is not right. You know what I mean? Like, everyone needs to do whatever they can within their own abilities, right? We're not all lawyers, and we're not all, prosecutors, and we're not all sitting on the benches as judges, but we have a voice, and we can speak out. Not all of us can afford to go to law school, and not all of us can do certain things. Not everybody can donate a bunch of money to different things, but we can all be a voice and speak out against abuse. Within our own communities, within our own homes. You see someone in your own home abusing somebody, you get that person some help. You don't allow the abuse to continue on like so many people will, And in these other countries, I mean, they have no hope. You think we don't have any hope over here in North America? You want to go to some place like Afghanistan, you want to try to survive there for 10 minutes as a woman, your chances are pretty slim. And it's harsh. It's very, very harsh. And, we've got to do something about this. So I'll finish this article. It says, women face discrimination at courts, said Wasma Frog from the Afghan Women's Network, the AWN, a consortium of NGOs and individuals working on gender issues. However, judicial officials reject the criticisms. These allegations have no real foundation. Women are treated fairly and as equally as men in courts. Badwin Baha, head of the Supreme Court's Penal Division, told IRIN, adding that the courts operated according to Islamic jurisprudence. Access to formal justice institutions in Afghanistan is limited, especially in rural areas, and up to 80% of the population relies on traditional dispute resolution mechanisms, especially as the formal justice system is viewed as an ineffective and corrupt, according to an Afghanistan National Human Development Report in 2007. So they talk about elopement treated as crime. There's no clear guidance in Afghanistan's penal code on how to deal with women and girls who run away from their homes, officials said, though the police arrest and prosecutors prosecute them. Our legal system is based on the Islamic Sharia law, in which elopement is a sinful act for which, depending on the characteristics of a person, there could be different but minor penalties, such as 2 to 3 months sentence, said the Supreme Court's Baha. Human rights activists condemn this and say women and girls who flee from domestic violence must not be treated as offenders. There are varying and sometimes opposing interpretations of the Sharia rules on elopement, said Ons Frog. Treating elopement as a crime is related more to predominant patriarchal culture in this country than to Islam, she said, adding that in most cases running away from home was a last resort for women to save their lives. And this is just the issue. Women here, running, in North America, there's domestic violence shelters, right? And even though they're full most of the time and there's only so much they can do, sadly enough. But so true. At least women can go to these domestic violence shelters and they don't have to worry about being put in prison because they're running from their abusive husbands or abusive partners. It's absolutely ridiculous. And in these countries, if a woman runs away, and women are considered to be women at the age of like 11, they marry these girls off, at 7, 8. Some of these girls are 6 years old when they're married off. And, to old men, right? We're talking old men with, 50-year-old men, 60-year-old men. These would be ancient men because there's nobody really living after that. That's the lifespan just isn't very big there. But the thing is that these young girls, between the ages of like 8, 9, 10, 11, if you see some of their stories, right, all the way up to like 15, 16 years old, they're running from abuse and they're trying to save their lives because they're being raped on a daily basis, they're being beaten, they're not being looked after, they can't get any health care, they can't get a doctor in because they won't allow them to see doctors, and they won't let them go anywhere by themselves. They have to be escorted by a male escort. So if a woman needs medical attention because she's been raped and beaten, if no one will walk her to the doctor, then she can't go. Because if she does, anyone on the street has the right to stone her or to shoot her, right? Anybody who sees a woman unescorted by, because of the way that their beliefs, their religious beliefs, well, it's just the Taliban. It has nothing to do with the Quran. It's just the Taliban's rules and regulations that the women have to be brought to justice. So quite often they're killed right in the street. And these women how could you treat somebody like that? No, that's a very sick society. They really need some serious help. And I don't see how you could treat anybody like that, whether it's a man, woman, or child, right? That's so incredibly sick and wrong. There's just nothing right about it. And, they can't even try to save their own lives, whereas thank God here in North America we have rules and we have, shelters. It says many females abandoned by their families or fleeing domestic violence seek protection at shelters managed by NGOs and with private donations. There are 14 shelters in different parts of the country, each accommodating dozens of women in search of a new life, the AIRHRC said. But see, 14 shelters in Afghanistan. That's it. I think there's only 2 hospitals in Afghanistan. That's a pretty big country. And, there's not, and with all the population there, 14 shelters? There's just not enough. I do a lot of looking into this. I hope that everybody will take a look at what's going on over there in Afghanistan, right? Because it's a shame. It should never be happening. And even within North America, you know what I mean? It shouldn't be happening over here either. We should not have domestic violence shelters overflowing because women are fearing for their lives and running with their children. What is going on, man? This has to stop. So, we need to do what we can to speak out against this. Do what you can within your own abilities, within your own capabilities, right? And the time that you have, because I know everybody's busy, right, including myself. But we have to do what we can to be a voice and to get that information out there, right? And to look around mainly at the people in our own lives, right, within our own families, at the children in our homes, to make sure that they're not being abused, And parents, if you're abusing your children, you don't have to. Get some help, reach out and get some help. Get some parenting help, get some support, because a lot of times parents are just stressed out and they take it out on their kids, and children don't deserve that. If you're abusing your partner, don't do it. Get some help and get some help for your partner. And, we can stop the cycle of abuse, but it's going to take everyone talking about it. It's going to have to be a national issue. It's going to have to be on TV everywhere. every day. It's going to have to be in the papers. It's going to have to be in the advertising. It's going to have to be on the radio. It's going to have to be everywhere. It's going to have to be nationwide. It's going to have to be North America wide. We can stop the cycle of abuse. It's very simple, but we have to start talking about it and we have to start dealing with it. Otherwise, it's just going to continue on. And so within our homes, right? That's why it's so important, because 90 to 95% of abuse is happening within the home. So if you need any information that I have, let me know. Get a hold of me on Blog Talk Radio here or Facebook when I'll be around. Take care of yourselves, everybody. Have a good day. Make sure that you're not being abused, and watch out for the kids in your life, that they're not being abused. If they are, you better report it. It's the law. And if you suspect abuse, do the right thing and report it. They don't remove the kids half the time anyway, but you could save their life, right? We could save children's lives. So take really good care of yourselves, everybody. Have a great day. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.